What is up, everyone? It's definitely been a while since I uploaded a video. Unfortunately, sometimes you get really busy with life. I have been practicing and playing Yu-Gi-Oh! All the time. I just never had any time to, do any of my YouTube content. So I apologize for that, but I'm very excited for what I have to show you today. Originally, when Power of the Elements came out, I didn't think that I would play either of the main decks, either Tearlament or Sprite. I was playing Subterra before that, and I was kind of just being cheap, not wanting to build a whole nother deck or learn a new deck, especially combo, because I mainly play control decks, and I always told people I wasn't smart enough to play combo decks. But I came across a really good deal that I couldn't pass up, so I bought the deck, just started practicing with it. I've tried a lot of different variants of it. What I have for you today is Tearlament Eldlich. It's still combo, but not as combo as other decks, so it has that slight control aspect. It's a little easier to pilot than some of the other versions. I would say that the other versions probably are a little bit better, but I had an Eldlich core that was ready to be plugged in, and I was just like, you know what, I want to play something different. And then so I built the deck, and then I went on YouTube and saw other people playing the same thing, give or take a few cards. So I basically built my version. Like, I tested a lot of different things, and this is the version that works the best for me. There's a lot of other really good cards out there that do different things, but let's get into this profile. So for Tearlaments, I mean, it's pretty standard. You have your 3 Rhino Heart, 3 Shiren, 3 Havnas, and 3 Merle. This is your very standard Tearlament monster core. Sometimes people play 1 less Rhino Heart because, they play reinforcement of the army. Plus the field spell, there's multiple ways to search them. But I personally think, this deck is all about getting something into your graveyard and triggering those graveyard effects. And the more of these that you take out, the less chance you have of, hitting something in the graveyard and being able to trigger the effect of fusing someone. Or Rhino Heart, summon himself, send a Tearlament monster from hand, or send a Tearlament card from hand to graveyard. You really want to maximize your chances of doing that, because at least until the Ishizu cards come out, that's like a max turbo. You're milling like 10-15 cards at a time. Until that comes out, this is not as good, so you really want to maximize what you're going to mill. So playing 3 of each, because you need to see something in your graveyard, especially since you're playing the Eldlich variant. There's times where you might not see anything, so you really need to maximize your chances. And then of course we have the 3 of the field spell. Really awesome card. Really good at chain blocking when you summon your hit Kalos. I mean, unless they have Imperm. But yeah, it's really good at chain blocking. There's a reason why this card is expensive as it is. You get your add, you get your pop, all your fusions get boosted. I'm not playing Winda, but there were times where I was playing Winda before when I was testing stuff, and having a 2700 attack Winda on the board is pretty crazy. They can't beat over it as easy. Or Dragus Sepelia, 3200 attack after it's boosted. That's pretty crazy. That makes it a lot harder to beat over cards like that, and it will make your opponent rethink things for sure. And then we are playing 2 Tearlament Soliek. I like all the traps. I just think for the room that I have, I just wanted to play 2 of this. It's a continuous, so it's not a one-time use. If it gets sent from the graveyard, sent to the graveyard by the deck when you're milling it, you get an automatic add from your deck to your hand. So that's why I like it better than the other trap that Book and Wins something, because that one, when it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, you only get to add from your graveyard, and depending on what you have in your graveyard, you're probably going to need that target to fusion summon. So that's why I like this one a lot better. And you know, it just being a continuous card effect, it's a good target for Eldlich to resummon himself, you know. So basically, I don't like the one-time use as much as I like this. I mean, the other ones are really good cards. Just for what I'm playing, I want to use this. Alright. Now we are on to our Eldlich core, and this is really standard as also 2 Golden Lord, 2 Eldlin, 3 Sanguine, 3 Conquistador, 2 Hawkero, and then of course our honorary Eldlich cards, 3 Skill Drain. So the Eldlich core is pretty self-explanatory. Curse Eldlin is really good now. I mean, it was good with an adventure too, but like a lot of times people didn't play Eldlin because it was a brick going first. But in this deck, it's really cool because a lot of times I'll end up using Shiren to pitch the Golden Lord from the hand to the grave and then summon. Obviously, that's not as reliable as sending another Tearlament monster from your hand to your graveyard. You know, that way you get a guaranteed fusion. With Golden Lord, it's a little risky because now you're relying on milling something to be able to fusion summon, but it's still really cool to have rather than not have it. And then you already have your Golden Lord in the grave, ready to summon back to the field. And then, yeah, 2 Eldlin. We don't want to brick on it. We want to go first, but we don't want to brick on this. So, I mean, it's a cool card to have first. Sometimes it's kind of bad going first. It just depends on what your hand is. 3 Sanguine, 3 Golden Land, 3 Conquistador, and then 3 Hawkero. Those are all pretty standard. Be careful with Sanguine because, you know, you might have multiple summons to try and resolve during your opponent's turn. Like if you summon Sprite Elf, and then you're gonna plan on summoning Merly during your opponent's turn. There was a time where I prematurely used Sanguine, and then I was locked into zombies for the rest of the turn. So the goal is to have Eldlich Golden Lord out first without having to use Sanguine, because then you're locked into zombies, and that can kind of hurt sometimes, because then you might have a Havness in your hand, you know, just you can't do anything, or Sprite Elf and Merly, and then you can't do anything either because you can't summon it back. So take that with a grain of salt. I still really enjoy the engine. I like the interactions with this. You know, in pinch situations, if you already have Golden Lord out on the field, you can use your Conquistador to pop one of your own Tearlament monsters and triggering its graveyard effect, whether that is fusion summoning or, you know, something like Kaleido Heart to bring itself back from the grave, and then when it does, it'll trigger its Nightmare Unicorn effect to book a moon, to shuffle something back into the deck. So it's really cool. And then some support cards. We're playing 2 Pot of Prosperity, 2 Super Poly. I'm playing 2 of each just because I want to go first, and I don't necessarily want to, you know, draw 2 copies of one of this card, because it has happened to me a lot. I think they're definitely still worth running. Super Poly is really good this format, especially with Garura coming out. Prosperity is also good in those pinch situations, but you definitely don't want to go banishing, you know, 6 cards can be really risky sometimes, just because you're going to end up needing something in the grind game and you won't have it, and that's definitely happened to me. So it definitely requires like really good management of your extra deck, but it's still worth playing. I mean, being able to get a skill drain in your hand just for that final sealing blow against your opponent when they've played through all your regular negates, and then you just flip the skill drain, you know, being able to search out off of Prosperity is really good. So just take all that with a grain of salt. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's not, but it's still worth playing. And then we're running 1 Terraforming, 1 Called By, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Instant Fusion, and then 1 Reinforcement of the Army. All these cards should be pretty self-explanatory. This searches your Rhinoheart. That way you can use the field spell to search for something else like Shiren. This is your easiest way to get into Kit Kalos. I don't even play Millenniumized Restrict. I don't think you have to. I think just summoning Kit Kalos off of this when you can is super broken every single time. Foolish Burial, in those weird situations where you need to, they've negated you a couple times, and then to get a fusion summon going, you send one of your Tearlament monsters, except for Rhinoheart, or you send a Golden Lord to just be able to immediately summon it back. Called by, self-explanatory. This deck is not running any hand traps, so Called by definitely comes in clutch against cards like DD Crow, Dimension Shifter, Ash. It's a 1-of, so obviously it's not going to be in your hand all the time, but it's still worth playing. And then Terraforming, obviously, to search the field spell. So that is the main deck. It is 41 cards. I thought about playing 40, but just since you run cards like Super Poly and Golden Lord, I felt like 41 was a pretty good ratio just to make sure that you're not bricking on anything. For the fusions, we are running 2 Kit Kalos and 1 Kaleido Heart. This is pretty standard ratios. You're running 2 of this just because it's a really good card to constantly be summoning to get your add, and then your mill, and then you shuffle it back into the deck using one of the regular Tearlament graveyard effects, and then summon your Dragosophilia. This is obviously a really good card. Get your shuffle back into the deck. If it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, just immediately reborn it back, and then send 1 Tearlament card from your deck to the graveyard. So that's going to enable you to fusion summon even more. And if you haven't used his shuffle effect, because it says if this card is special summoned, or if an aqua monster is sent to your graveyard by card effect, so when he reborns himself, that's a special summon. You can target 1 card your opponent controls, shuffle it into the deck. So basically, no matter what, that effect is going to be triggered. Then we are running 1 Muddragon of the Swamp, Super Poly target. Super Poly target number 2, Garuba. You can also make this through your regular Tearlament graveyard fusion summoning. It just depends on what your board is. Like, there was a time where I was able to use this and the Merly to link summon into Sprite Elf, and then I got the draw off of this. Muddragon of the Swamp is obviously really good because it says your opponent cannot target this card or monsters on the field with the same attribute as this card with card effects. Once per turn, quick effect, declare 1 attribute, this card becomes that attribute until the end of the turn. So obviously the main purpose is to get them out and then declare dark. Most of your extra deck is dark, your main deck is dark, so yeah, it's a really good card. And it's a Super Poly target. And then 2 copies of Predaplanet Dragosophilia. This is obviously really easy to get out once you have your Kit Kalos in the grave. Then you trigger another Tearlament to fusion summon, sending that and then the Kit Kalos back, and then you summon back the Dragosophilia. And playing 2 of them is really cool, just because it allows you to have a really good amount of follow-up play. Like, this one gets destroyed, and then you trigger a graveyard effect, and then you just shuffle it back and summon out another one, and then you have another negate ready. For the XYZs, they're running Time Thief Redoer. Really cool card. You can really steal some clutch cards during the standby phase. Consular Pleiades. Another cool unexpected card. I mean, I don't always make him. If I have to use Prosperity, he's usually one of the first go-to targets, but it's a pretty cool card for the grind game, and definitely can be unexpected at times. Gustav Max. Obviously we can make this with 2 copies of the Golden Lord, and this has a lot of uses. If you need to get one of your Golden Lords into the grave so you can reborn it through its card effect and have it be stronger, then you just overlay both of those, detach, burn for 2k, summon the Golden Lord back, and then yeah, you're good to go. And then copy of Zeus. I don't end up making him a lot either. It's just a good backup, a good board wipe, just in case I need it. He's usually one of my first go-to Prosperity targets. Now for the links, we're running 1 copy of Dark. Obviously really easy to make because you play a lot of Dark monsters. You don't always have a Dark target in your opponent's graveyard depending on what they're playing, but It's just an easy way to link climb. Then we're running one copy of Sprite Elf. You can run this in this deck because its requirements are 2 monsters, including a level 2, rank 2, or link 2 monster. So Tearlament's Merly is level 2, so you can link summon Tearlament's Merly and any other monster into this, and then whatever it points to cannot be targeted. And then the best effects, the quick effect, target 1 level 2 monster in the graveyard, special summon it. So that's really cool because you can, you know, stun or get in the way of your opponent's play by summoning back your Tearlament's Merly that you just used to link off into this. And then Merly triggers to mill the top 3 cards, and then depending on what you hit, you can feed and summon on your opponent's turn. Usually I end up being able to make Kaleido Heart, and then that allows me with Kaleido Heart and the filled spell to shuffle 1 back and then pop 1. And then our link 3 target, because we do play Access Code, is Unicorn. And sometimes I don't end up using his effect just because I need the card in my hand. Since it's discarding his cost, you're not going to get, you know, your Tearlament card effects. They have to be sent to the graveyard by card effects, but it's still a really good card to play. And then we use that to go into our Access Code talker, which is very self-explanatory, just a really good card. I almost sold him because I was afraid he might get reprinted in the 2022 Megaton, but turns out he isn't, so I'm glad that I kept him. For our side deck, we are running 3 copies of Lava Golem. Really good card right now. Only deck it's bad against is Floowandereeze, unless you have a way to negate their board and then use it, but it's really good against any other deck that summons a couple monsters. Just tribute off their Baron and 1 other card, and then boom, he's on the board. 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. In the pure build, you have room to run this in the main deck, which definitely comes in clutch, but unfortunately, because it's Tearlament Eldlich and you're running 2 different decent sized engines, you don't have the room to main deck it, but definitely still worth side decking. And then the last spells, 3 copies of Twin Twisters. You're not going to get any discard effect off of your Tearlaments when you pay the cost to discard 1, but it's really good to play with any of your Eldlich cards because then you automatically get it into the grave. And I thought about, you know, first I was playing Cosmic, but Cosmic kind of sucks sometimes because you're just sniping out that 1 card, so this is a way better blowout card. I think it's worth it to discard to pop the 2. And then for the traps, we're playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. This is pretty much for if you know your opponent. If you're going first and you know your opponent has a chance to hit you with that blowout card like Dark Ruler or Droplets, this is really good protection against that because the main and the extra deck doesn't really have a way to protect against cards like that. So if they're main decking it, no matter what, then game 1, you know, if you get to go first, there is a chance that they can potentially win because you'll spend all this time building the board and then they just play that 1 card, Dark Ruler, and then your whole board gets shut down. So that can suck sometimes, but that's why there's game 2 and game 3. And then lastly, we're playing 3 copies of There Can Be Only One. And this is a really good card against certain decks. Against Tearlaments, it's not that bad. That's why I opt to play it. I forgot to mention it earlier, but the reason I play Skill Drain, 1 is because of the Eldlich engine, and 2 because Tearlaments is not, you know, super affected by it because most of the effects that you want to trigger are graveyard effects, and Skill Drain only affects what's up on the field. For There Can Be Only One, it's equally not that bad because you are running multiple different types. Warrior, Fiend, Aqua, you know. So it's not the end of the world. It can sometimes, in those weird situations where you need 2 Aquas on the board, like obviously it's going to stop you in that situation, but it hurts your opponent more than it hurts you, so that's why it's definitely worth playing. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. I hope I explained everything adequately for you. I'm trying to get replay videos recorded, but it's kind of tough because you get like really random matchups against, I try to record videos against like all of the meta decks, but you don't always get that. I feel like a lot of these YouTubers, they probably have people to help them. They just have one person play each meta deck and then they record it. I don't have that, unfortunately. I just do it purely based off of the random person that I'm matched up against. But we'll see what's going to go on with that. I mainly just wanted to get the actual deck profile on, that way everything could be explained. This is a really fun deck to play, whichever variant you choose. I actually enjoy the aspect of what am I going to mill, what am I going to hit. That slight uncertainty is actually kind of fun, believe it or not. And I think the deck is just really powerful. It has the capacity to play through so much, and it has a very high ceiling in what it can do. And these builds that are out now do not even compare to what's going to come when the Ishizu cards come out. So it's definitely worth investing in. Some of the cards are more expensive than they were on release, but I think it's still a really fun deck, and I think it's definitely worth picking up. So take all that with a grain of salt. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe, or if you like the video. Share your comments, whether you like the deck or don't like it, whether you agree or disagree. I'd love to talk about it regardless. Alright, you guys have a good one. Bye.